Just sitting here ready for an hour already.
He says he fact comes 20 minutes.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Keep that on record video.
Okay. We're at chapter 7 here in Kein Purim, Tafshin Yud Gimel. We are a few lines into chapter 7 already, but we'll take it from the top. So, the question that chapter 7 is coming to address is, we talked earlier in the Maimer about the concept of goyrel, of lottery, of lots, and the lots that obviously we're talking about Haman casting lots, Purim being called Purim from the word Pur, which means lots, and the lots that Haman casts. So we explained that lottery is a very high spiritual level, right? We said that basically the interplay, the relationship between heaven and earth operates in two modes. You have Seder Shtalshlus, you have God as He is creator, as He puts Himself into, puts on the hat of creator and involves Himself in creation. And then you have higher than Ishtalshlus, higher than creation. God as He is transcendent, as He is beyond it. And we explained that in terms of the Hishtalshlus relationship, the relationship of God with His creation as He's creator. So here, obviously, if He's creating a world, as He's investing in it, then clearly the world is significant to Him on that level. And so on such a level, you have to say that what we do, our actions matter, are significant. And that's why the pasuk says, that God should peer down from His holy abode in heaven, and He blesses His people Israel. Right? So we explained Shamayim, heaven. When we say Shamayim, we're referring to Hishtalshlus, and Shamayim is actually the beginning of Hishtalshlus. So the highest point of God as He's creator, we call that Shamayim, because Shamayim is Chachma. Chachma is the beginning of Hishtalshlus. Okay, we talked about that last time. And so, from a place of Hishtalshlus, in that context, it's Uvarech es Amchas Yisrael. God blesses His people. Why? Because, of course, we're deserving of blessing. A Yid is deserving of blessing. And the Rebbe points out that every single Jew, even one who is not from the behaving the way he should, but we know the Gemara says is Malay Mitzvahs Karima, and every single Jew is full of good deeds, full of mitzvahs, full of redeemable qualities, and is always deserving of blessing and of reward. So when it comes to a level of Ishtalshalus there, of course, the good will prevail over the bad. Because in creation there's good and there's evil, and good should always defeat evil. But then there's higher than Ishtalshalus. Then there's that level of transcendence where we say, Kula Kamei Kalach Shiv, the entire world is non-existent to God. So if that's the case on that level here, that's what we quoted the pasuk Kachashecha Ka'ira, light and darkness are the same, good and evil are the same. Here, we would apply what the pasuk says in Yiv, right? That we can't affect God. God is too high, too removed from being influenced and impacted by the activities of the physical finite world, right? So we said Goyrul is that operates on that level, beyond Ishtalshalus. Why does a person cast a lot? Because the two things are equal. He has a choice between A and B. So if he has a reason to choose A or B, so then it's a rational choice that he makes. That's a reasonable choice. But when he has no reason to choose one over the other, so he casts lots. Why is he casting lots? Because the two are equal. So in that sense, when we talk about good and evil being equal, what level are we talking? We're talking about higher than Ishtalshalus, a level where nothing matters. Right. So, in other words, if we're going to say that there's a place where our choices and our decisions and the things that we do don't affect God, then that works both ways. It's for better and for worse, right? In other words, doing a mitzvah doesn't help him, and doing an avera doesn't affect him. So, good and evil are the same on that level. So, if so, here you have to cast lots to decide what you. So those are the two things. So we said like this. So that's how we see the idea of lottery, though, corresponds to a level of higher than Ishtalshalus, beyond creation. And so that's why we compared Yom Kippur to Purim, and we talked about Purim being higher than Yom Kippur. We're not going to review that again now. But we see that there's a very high level of godliness when we're talking about the level of goyrel, of lots. But then we connected it also with Achashverosh. And we said Achashverosh is the same idea. Achashverosh, we know that Achashverosh in the Megillah is a reference to God. And Achashverosh, we have Achris V'Reishis Shaloi, right? It brings it Svarim that the word Achashverosh, the Gemara talks about, the Medrash talks about the name Achashverosh. It's like a unique name. And we learn all kinds of things from that name. It implies all kinds of different things. So one of the things is achris v'reishis shaloi, that the beginning and the end are his, meaning that they're the same to him. That's a level, a transcendent level. So the Rebbe asks at the end of chapter 6, how does that fit? We say that Achashverosh is a level of higher than Shtalshlus. How does this fit with what we said and what the Gemara says? And it's also brought the opening in the Medrash on Megillas Esther, which is that Hushkuru Pneim Shal Yisrael, that the people's faces were blackened in his time, meaning that they were fatzaret. They were suffering during his reign. So the Rebbe explains that that's exactly, the two are connected. How is it possible that you can be in a situation where the Jewish people are downtrodden, where they're being abused, where they're blackened like the side of a pot that's blackened by fire? How does that happen? It happens because at that time, what's operating in the world? A level that's beyond the shtalshlus, where everything, good and evil, are the same, and so that's why evil could prevail in such a context. So if that's the case, if the people were already in a state of Achashverosh, meaning before Haman even comes to power, Achashverosh was their king. The Gemara doesn't really specify what it is exactly that caused the people to be blackened during the time of Achashverosh, but in some of the commentaries it talks about, the commentary of the Medrash says one of the reasons is because of, at that time, Achashverosh canceled the reconstruction of the Beis HaMikdash. So the people had already started reconstructing the second Beis HaMikdash, the second temple was being rebuilt, and Achashverosh stopped it. So that was part of what was going on. I mean, also generally the fact that they were in Gullus, they were in exile, this was a time between the temples. They weren't exactly, so it was in a time when the evil was dominating over the holy, over the good. So if that was the case, so what was Haman's objective? We were already operating in a situation where good and evil are the same. So what was Haman going to try to do by casting lots? Isn't that the same thing? Wouldn't that be redundant? It would seem unnecessary. Yep. So let's see. Let's get back into chapter 7. So Shleimar. So Rebbe explains like this. So why is it then that Haman would cast lots? Is that Tamal Zeh Haman Hippopor B'chdei Lagiel B'chinas HaGoyer Shalamayla Mishalsh is the reason that Haman cast lots in order to reach a level of goyro, of lottery, which is higher than Hishtal Shalos. Afsha as b'mei Achashverosh gam kodim Hippopor Hoysa Hanhaga Mitzad Lamayla Mishalsh. Even though at the time that he's casting lots, we're already dealing with a higher than Hishtal Shalos reality. It's because Goyrel, this level that Haman was trying to access by casting lots, is actually even higher than the level of higher than Ishtalshalis that was already going on with Achashverosh. The idea of Achashverosh V'Reishis beginning and the end of his, meaning they're all the same. So lottery is even higher than this higher than Ishtalshalis reality that was already operating. So how is this? So he says like this. Inyan hu the fact that he's called Achashverosh, and as we're saying, Achashverosh means Achris Vereishis, end and beginning are the same. Yeah. So then that means that there's a level of Achris and there's a level of Reishis. There's an end and there's a beginning. It's just that it's just that on that level they're equal. They're the same. But there's still a beginning and there's still an end. In other words, even this is even in a higher than Hishtalshalis level, even when we're saying that everything is the same, but even here there are levels. There are tiers to how that works. In other words, to what extent is creation insignificant, right? So here there are also levels. The Rebbe says like this. So lahayr. This is parenthetically. The Rebbe says like this. So lahayr. When it talks about, describes the feast that Achashverosh makes, it says he made a feast for all his ministers and servants. And only afterwards was there a feast for all the citizens of Shushan. So Mavur B'Lukot Torah. So the Rebbe explains that the revelation that was experienced, or let's put it in this, that's more mystical terms. Put it in practical terms, the ministers and the officials and the government workers experienced a greater They had a more lavish feast that they experienced, a greater experience than the everyday common citizens at their feast. Meaning that there's a difference, right? And even when we're talking about the feast for the people themselves, there are different levels. As the pasuk, as is implied in the pasuk, that right? It says that the feast took place b'chatzar ginas, right? B'chatzar ginas bisan hamelech. It talks about chatzar, the courtyard. Talks about the garden. It talks about the house. Meaning, the Gemara says that people went. There are still different classes. The people that had to go here were here. People that had to go. So there was distinction. There were differences. So v'yesh leimar. So we could say that when we're talking about the level of ishtalshalos, that's the first feast that he makes only for the officials. So that was a level of ishtalshalos, meaning the officials that are deserving of a feast, they get the feast. The fact that then afterwards there is a feast that he makes for everybody, to the extent that there are some people that aren't even worthy of coming into the king's palace. He's like, you stay out in the yard, you're not coming into the house. So you're talking about even, and yet such people are still invited to a feast. Yeah. So but if somebody's not even worthy of coming to the house, so why is he even at the party altogether? Because that's already a higher level. That's where we see higher than ishtalshus. Achris v'reisha shaloi, beginning end at the same time. So therefore, everybody is now deserving of coming to the feast. But even so, there's still different levels. Nevertheless, hagilei la'am ha'i lamata hagilei l'sarav avadav v'gam b'hagilei la'am ha'i kam adargis kizev achris v'reisha shaloi hu shalagabei achris v'reisha sem b'shava. Why is that? That if you're talking about it's all the same. So Rebbe explains what's the difference. That when we're talking about that they're all the same, that's with regard to him. But inherently, there's still a difference between them. And therefore, nevertheless, so therefore, the way he reveals himself, even though on some level, it's all the same to him, and yet the way he's manifest in these different levels, there are distinctions. That in the higher levels, Rashis, the beginning, on those levels, he's more manifest than in lower levels. Right? Look at note 56. When we talk about the higher than the the transcendent light, so where is the transcendent light more apparent? In higher worlds. So even though we're saying it's transcendent, meaning it transcends and is present everywhere equally, and yet the extent of where is it sensed, where is it revealed more, so there's a distinction in higher and lower. Right? So essentially, we could still call it transcendent and everything is equal because it's everywhere. And yet, it's like we've talked a lot about the difference between koiches pnimim and koiches makifim, right? The internalized faculties and functions of our neshama and the transcendent ones. So what's the difference? The internal ones, let's say, are like intelligence, emotions, and the transcendent one is will, right? We've talked about this a lot. So what's the difference? Why is will transcendent and the other koiches, we call them internalized? Because when we talk about the internalized faculties, those all have their own space, their own place. So your intellect's in your mind. You don't think with your fingers, with your hands, right? You think with your mind. There's a seat, a place for that koyach, for that potential to be expressed. And the same is true with our feelings, our emotions, and all these other internalized faculties have their specific place where they operate. Will, on the other hand, is not like that. Will, when a person really, really wants something, you can be your whole body shakes because will is everywhere. You want it. It's also the koiches. Okay, the koiches pnimim also, this will be relevant, I guess, a little bit later as well. Koiches pnimim also have a certain definition. They take on a certain form and shape. Whereas will is a little bit more abstract. Will is already the soul itself, just the soul's desire for something, a movement towards something else. But the point is, where is that felt? It's felt everywhere. And yet, even if a person wants something so badly that his whole body could be shaking for it, yet there's still a difference in the consciousness that a person feels when he wants something. Where is he more aware that he wants something? In his mind or in his heart, right? So maybe his body is shaking, but could you say that that the shaking body is as aware of his will as his mind is? No. In other words, it's equal, it's everywhere, and yet there's a difference. There are degrees to the extent to which it's revealed, in which it's manifest, right? So that's what we're saying here. That even though we're talking about a level of Achashverosh, the question was, why would Haman want to cast lots? We're already higher than Ishtalshus. Everything's the same. Good and evil, everything's equal there on that level. Nothing, the Ma'aseh Tochteinim, the activities of man don't matter. So if that's already active, so what's Haman looking to do? Right? Once we're on that level. So that's Rebbe saying there are different levels, there are different degrees. And so on one hand, there's a difference with the way we receive it. Right? There's a difference in terms of the way creation connects and appreciates or feels, senses this transcendent level. But as a result, you have to say that even with regard to the Oir itself, the Oir HaSoiv itself, there's a difference. If the fact that in some places it's manifest more, it's revealed more, in some places less, so then that means that there's a difference even there as well. So on some level, generally we could say everything's equal. But really, when you look a little deeper, it's not so simple. Achashverosh, Achashverosh Shaloi, beginning and end are the same. And yet this is Achris and this is Reishis. This is end and this is beginning. Okay.
So it depends from which perspective you look at it from?
No, even from his perspective, this is Achris and this is Reishis. It's just that they're the same.
There's still a good and there's a bad. It's just we don't know which one is good and which one is bad. But there's still a good and a bad. Well,
Yeah, you could put it in those terms. Yeah, yeah.
There was no good or there was no bad. Everything was exactly the same.
I thought you said from his perspective it's the same. And it's only from
Right, but as a result, because of that, even by him, you have to say that there's a difference. We'll return to this point. I'll try and make a connection later when we get, because we might come back to this point. Okay, let's keep going here. Okay, so getting back here, so when we say the level of Achashverosh, there's Achris and there's Reishis. So even though they're the same, Achris, Reishis, Shaloi, they're the same, the end and the beginning, yet this is beginning, this is end, there's a difference. And as we see Achashverosh, we're talking about Achashverosh, a transcendent level, Achashverosh makes a party, and yet the ministers get one party, that's a mode of within Hishtalshalos, where you have to earn a right to come to the party. You have to be deserving for the party, and the ones who deserve it get the party. And then afterwards, he makes a party for everybody, meaning whether you deserve it or not, you get to the party. That's already a level beyond Hishtalshalos, a transcendent level, and yet even there, we see there are distinctions. But when we're talking about a level of Goyrel, this is even higher. When we talk about the level of lots, here, there is no beginning and end altogether. Remember when in chapter 2 we said that when does a person cast lots? When two things are the same. Right? So you could say that there are two things. To me, they're both insignificant. But are the two things the same? They're insignificant to me. But they're not the same. This is Achris, this is Reishis. Yeah, Rabbi will give an analogy here. Just as it is with regard to beginning and end. Higher and lower, the same is true with regard to holiness and the unholy. That when it comes to that level, spiritually, of Achashverosh, right, higher than Hishtalshalos. So there's a difference between holy and unholy. Ella, it's just that it's just that because he is removed, he's transcendent, he's removed from his creation, so the holy and the unholy are insignificant. So therefore, it's possible for there to be energy given to the unholy, the undeserving. Right, as we said, Chash the klipas noiga, v'reish the gimel klipas at meis. We quoted earlier, right? We talked about the end of chapter 6, that there's Chash, which is klipas noiga, reish is gimel klipas at meis. You see, the unholy is getting from the holy. Why is it? How is it possible that the holiness is nourishing and sustaining the unholy? Because on that level, it's not so significant. It's interesting that this idea that the unholy is nurtured and nourished from a higher level of holiness, which is why also, I mean, it plays out even in halacha, certain things that we have to be extra careful about, because certain things, there's a vulnerability. The higher the holiness of something, the more vulnerable it becomes to being a source of energy for the unholy. Why? Because the higher the holiness, the less significant, and therefore anything could possibly get. He gives an example. Is gabrus, to the extent that you can get to a point where the unholy could prevail over the holy. Hushchru pneim shel Yisrael. Right? As we said, Achashverosh, you're talking about a time that's Achashverosh, that's Achashverosh, we're talking about beyond Hishtalshalos, and what happens? Hushchru pneim shel Yisrael, the Jewish people are suffering. And V'yashlem al derech smam is biyadayim tisapes, v'hi beichle melech. The Pasuk says that a different ways of interpreting the Pasuk, but one of the ways at least is that a spider, so it creates a web, and that's how, so it makes its own web, and that's how it catches its food. And so spider webs are, messy. And yet, where's the spider make its webs? In the Hechle Melch, in the king's chamber. In other words, when you're living in your own little studio apartment and you see a spider, you chase it out right away. You're not letting a spider set up shop in your house. So where does the spider get to set up shop and be left alone to do its thing? In the king's chamber. That's the pasuk. So what does this mean? Even though it's making its spider webs in the king's chamber, it's dirtying the king's room. Nevertheless, it's unbothered. Why? Because since the king is so busy with higher, more important things, he doesn't bother to take the time to clean out the spider. So the spider is left alone in the king. So where could a spider set up its web? Specific dafke in the king's chamber. Why? Because it's the king. Since he's the king, he's busy dealing with more important things, other things. He's not concerned with his little, spider webs that are forming in his room. So that's how the spider isn't able to do it. So it's because the king is removed from, because of his how great he is. That's what enables that what gives space for the spider to make its web.
But isn't that counterproductive to hashgacha pratis?
We'll get there. We're working our way towards it. We'll get there. The point is, where does hashgacha come from? So you can say it works on a lower level, or we can get to a higher level. We have to work our way through that. So here's the thing. But nevertheless, when we're talking about a level of higher than ishtalshalus, here it's possible for unholy to flourish, and even to prevail to an extent, or for a certain period, over the holy. Why? Because since we're talking about a level of godliness that's so far removed from everything, so therefore everything else is insignificant. Since it's insignificant, he doesn't bother dealing with it, right? And so therefore, unholy can be nurtured and nourished because it's all the same for him. And yet, this is only true up to a point. Going back to the analogy of the pasuk, that the spider creates its web in the king's palace. So imagine if the spider, though, starts breaking furniture. Will the king get rid of the spider? Yeah. It's because the spider is making little webs to catch flies or whatever it's trying to catch. That doesn't matter. So fine. So the spider is allowed to set up shop and is feasting on everything that it's catching in its very significant web, because none of that matters to the king. But if the spider were to start really kicking it up and making a big ruckus, then the king will get involved, will intervene, and get rid of the spider. So evil can dominate and evil can flourish up to a certain point. As long as it's sort of flying under the radar, not getting noticed, so to speak, it can flourish. And where is it getting its energy from? Specifically from a higher level of holiness. And therefore the people could suffer, the Jewish people, they can have exodus against them, they can't build the base of Mikdash, they're in exile, they're displaced from their homeland, all that can happen. But extinction, that they should be wiped out, that already is, that's going to catch the king's attention even on that level. So Haman knew if he wants to, God forbid, carry out his plan, the level of Achashverosh wasn't enough for him. Merely higher than Ishtalshalus wasn't going to cut it. So Haman knew that from a level of Ishtalshalus, on a level, he knows that when we're talking about a lower level, where creation matters, there's no way, even the worst of the Jewish people, there's no way he can harm them. Because Malay Mitzvahs Krima, and even they're deserving of God's blessing, and therefore it's not, he's certainly destined to fail.
But only his wife knows that, though.
Well, he knew that as well. He was the one who cast lots. But then he knows also higher than that, Achashverosh, the current situation, he looks around, he sees the Jewish people are down, and the Persian Empire is up, right? And they have the authority over them. So great. So he sees now evil is flourishing. So he's good. So why can't he just go and make a decree? Go to the king and say he wants to do what it is that he wanted to do. Realize that's not going to be enough. In order to be able to carry out his plan, before he did that, he had to cast lots. Why? Because even that level of Achashverosh, the level that was going on then, was not enough for him to do what it is that he wanted. That was already going to go too far. That was going to push the envelope too far. Yeah. So he says like this. So when Haman desired to annihilate the entire Jewish people, God forbid, So hipil pur hu agoyrel. He cast lots. That was right. Hipil pur. That's the goyrel. He cast lots. The kivan shebibchinas hagoyrel emel chatchilo chiluk ben kedush l'sitrachra. Because since on the level of goyrel, there to begin with, there is no distinction. There's no difference between holy and unholy. Or befrat lefiyam avor leils of gimel v'dalid shagoyrel huleirak lemayla mishalshus ala lemayla game aratzin v'termitzis lachin chashush alideza yuchal chaser sham lahafik es mamai. Since as we said earlier, that the goyrel is on a level that's higher, not only higher than ishtalshelus, but it's higher than ratzin, which is higher than ishtalshelus. Right? Ratzin is a level that's transcendent. Goyrel is higher than ratzin, because as we said, when does a person cast lots? Not only when he doesn't have a reason to choose one over the other, but he doesn't have a desire to choose one over the other. His desire is not leaning one way or the other, so he casts lots, and then he desires it. Right? So in other words, the goyrel influences your will, because it's higher than will. So what happens on that level? Here, it's not a level of achris and reishis that are equal. There's nothing. Right? The Medrash says, I don't know what God chooses. Does he choose what he desires? Does he desire the avodah of tzaddikim? Does he desire their behavior? Or does he desire the behavior of rishaim, of sinners? What does it mean you don't know? How could you not know? This is tzaddikim, this is rishaim, this is good, this is evil. You're not sure if God likes good or evil. So what's the point? There's a level of where good and evil, good is good and evil is evil. Of course, there's no question. Of course, God desires good, not evil. Even on a level that's beyond it, where good and evil are equal to it, even there you can't really say I don't. You can say I don't know what he wants because here we're not dealing with rationale, but still good is good and evil is evil. But then there's a level where there isn't good or evil. And that's the level of goyrel. When you say the two things are equal, achris and reishis, in other words, you could say like this: achris and reishis, beginning and end, are the same to me. But one is still achris and one is still reishis. One is still beginning, one is still an end. Because they're the same to me, so therefore I can treat even the ones that don't deserve it, I can treat them as well as I treat the ones that do deserve it. Because it's no difference to me. But inherently they are different. And so therefore there's only so far that I'm willing to tolerate that which I'm indifferent. There's only so much indifference, right? There's a certain limit to that indifference. But then you say it's not achris and it's not reishis. It's not good, it's not evil. It's nothing. So here, is there a limit to that? If it's not anything, it's not anything. So that's what Haman was trying to access. The level of goyrel, where none of that exists. And therefore, he felt that on that level he'll be able to carry out his decree. We have time to continue a little bit? Should we continue? Let's keep going. Okay, chapter 8. V'hinei. So the fact that we say that goyrel is higher than seichel and higher also than will, right? In other words, higher than ishtalshus and higher than ishtalshus. So now we've been talking about goyrel. We touched a little bit on bechira, on choice, but we've been talking about lots. Now the Rebbe is introducing this idea of choice. Choice is also higher. So we said that goyrel is higher than intellect and understanding. And it's also higher than desire, than will. And the same is true with regard to choice. Choice is higher than intellect and understanding, and it's also higher than will. It explains. When your mind, when your intellect dictates that this is something that's worthy of being chosen, so and even when he wants something, not because there's a reason to want it, but because he wants it. He just wants it even beyond rationale. So then he is compelled to choose it. It's not free will. If a rational person, the Rebbe said this, that a rational, that somebody who's a rational person, if he has a reason to choose something, he's compelled to choose it. He's compelled to choose it. As a rational person, you have to take the thing that rationally makes sense to take. It's even more compelling to a rational person than somebody forcing you to take it externally. That internal intellectual compulsion to choose it, that's even stronger, it's even more powerful. So you can't say that you're choosing. What it means is it's choosing you because it has reasons to be chosen, so it's in a sense choosing you.
But why marginalize?
And if you want something,
Why marginalize the fact that you're making a choice?
You are making a choice, but it's not bechira chavsha. It's not true free choice. It's not a free choice. It's a choice that's been compelled. It's kind of been forced on you. And even when you want something, so here it's not the thing compelling me to choose it for any particular reason. I want it. Just because I want it. But because I want it, therefore I have to, that's what I'm going to choose. If there are two things in front of me, one of them I want, one of them I don't want, which one am I going to choose? Obviously the one I want. Right? So it's not true choice. So what's, just as we said about lottery, when does a person cast lots? When he can't choose one or the other. There's no reason to choose one over the other, and he doesn't desire one more than he desires the other. So he casts lots. So the same is true with choice. When do we say there's true free choice? There's true free choice when you don't have a reason to choose one over the other, and when you don't even desire one over the other. In that scenario, that's where you have true free will. I think we're going to have to stop here, yeah? So the question then becomes, what's the difference between choosing, then exercising free will, and lottery? If both of them are in the same scenario, yeah? I don't have a reason to choose one, and I don't have a desire for one. So I can either cast lots or I can choose. What's the difference between them? Or are they one and the same? So we'll continue that Mitzvah Shem next class.
Will that be Monday or Tuesday?
Tuesday.